I'm going to record on this computer. There we go. We're live on Facebook. And welcome, everyone. There we go. We're live on Facebook. I have an echo happening. And welcome, everyone. There we go. We're live on Facebook. I have an echo happening. And welcome, everyone. There we go. We're live.
I think you'll have to mute your Facebook.
There we go. Yeah, I just shut that page. So we good now? No more echo. We've got Whitney joining us here. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you everyone for taking some time out of your day. Hi, Whitney. Welcome to join me. My name is Melissa Deely. I know some of you, but not all of you. And I'm an integrative mind-body health practitioner and also a podcaster. My podcast is called Don't Wait for Your Wake Up Call, which you can find on any of the podcast apps or right from my website. And I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules here with me today to have a wonderful discussion around hormones. And as I don't know all of you, I would love it if in the chat you would just type where you are tuning in from, because I love the power of technology to bring us all together and allow us to connect from all parts of the continent, et cetera, et cetera. And while you're doing that, as I said, we're here to talk about hormones today. So all women go through puberty and menopause, right? It's just a fact of life. And yet many are suffering symptoms of either PMS or menopause and accept these as being normal, right? As something that we simply have to go through as part of being a woman. And I want to share with you today that this is not true, that your symptoms are simply your body letting you know that your hormones are out of balance and that you can do something about it. And yet we haven't been taught that. We've been taught via societal norms to simply accept our symptoms. And think back to your high school days, all the girls walking together in the hallways, going to their lockers, changing classrooms. How often was that conversation around PMS, right? And it just became so normal that if you didn't have PMS, you wondered what was wrong with you, or at least I did. And in school, we were taught about puberty and the changes that our body goes through. But we were never taught that PMS isn't normal or to question why we had these PMS symptoms. And then when it comes to menopause, we haven't actually had a space for education for women to come together and learn what to expect as the body goes through menopause, because we're no longer in school. There isn't that easy place to teach all of us, right? And so what do? We talk to our mothers, our sisters, our friends about their experience. And so when they tell you how they suffered, guess what? We again normalize those symptoms and we expect that we're going to have, hot flashes and night sweats and be doing this and all of that stuff, right? And again, we normalize it. And in fact, I have an aunt who's in New Zealand, and she went through menopause, and her doctor told her that you're through menopause. And he was shocked that she'd never once gone to him complaining of symptoms and asking for help, because it's so normal that as we go through menopause, our hormones change, which triggers imbalances and creates symptoms that we want to do something about, and we'll often go to our doctor. And we'll learn today why that happens through menopause. But what's happening is that we simply accept the symptoms that we hear all around us and we suffer. But your body isn't meant to suffer. And so my purpose today is to just share with you the knowledge so that you can start sharing that with other women, and we can create a domino effect to help girls and women realize that none of us need to be accepting our symptoms just because we're a woman, and that we can do something about them. And in fact, this is true of any symptoms in our body. Symptoms literally are our body's way of talking to us and asking us to do something differently. Every time you accept a symptom of a sign of aging, seasonal allergies, genetics, PMS, menopause, stop and ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me? We do not have to feel worse as we get older. We can feel better as we age and choose to take proactive action in our health, because when we know better, we do better. And I honestly feel fitter and healthier than I did 20 years ago when I was in my 30s, because I know so much more now than I did then. And I've chosen to implement that knowledge as I learn it. So type in the chat, are you here because you're struggling with PMS symptoms, you're struggling with menopause symptoms, or just write learn if you're simply here to learn. I'd love to know why you're here today and what stage you're at so that I can adjust the presentation to make sure I'm incorporating that. And after you've typed that in, I'd also love for you to type in if you've ever attended a class about hormones before and how they're changing throughout your lives and the impact they can have. Or is this the first time that you've actually attended a class to learn more about your hormones in your body? And I'm seeing people, I'm here to learn about hormonal imbalance, menopause symptoms, PMS symptoms. Photo flashes are driving me nuts, Marika. First class, first time. Awesome. So that's great to know. And then the other question that I have for all of you, thank you for communicating in the chat, is who do you talk to regarding menopause? For those of you that are there, who do you turn to or have you been turning to? Is it your mom, your aunt, your sister, your friends? Or if you're not even there yet, who do you think that you would turn to? Or typically a doctor. And yes, me helping you through. Thanks, Jackie, definitely. Whitney, thank you. Glad you guys are here. And it's, this is my journey, which I will share with you as well. And so I'm really happy to help others through that too. I also have a client who I help rebalance her menopausal hormones to alleviate hot flashes, night sweats, poor sleep, brain fog, and more. And she truly said that she wished she knew me in her younger years, because her PMS was so bad that for 2 days every month, she was in the corporate world, she tried to avoid talking to her colleagues because she knew she could feel the irritation in her body, right? And she didn't want to snap anyone's head off because she knew that it wasn't justified at all. And it was just the emotions and what she was coping with. And so literally for 2 days every month, she tried to stay away from people as much as possible. And that's no way to live your life, right? Having to avoid people and not feeling like you're in control of your actions and your responses to other people. So I do want to invite you to shut down all distractions. Spend this time of self-care with me so that you don't miss out on any of this information that I'm providing today, because I want you to have it all and to then be able to share with the women in your life and help me create that domino effect of informed women who no longer suffer silently. So my story started when I was 18 and I was at university and I started getting migraines and I didn't know why. And at the time I was seeing a homeopathic doctor, was our family doctor. And what I had figured out was that they seemed to be attached to my cycle and that I would get them at 1 or 2 days before the onset of my period. And I got this homeopathic remedy, which was very, very helpful. And I just, that was just life. I would get these migraines, I would use the homeopathic remedy. It would make the headache go away so I could get through my classes and assignments and exams and all of that. When I came to Canada, though, I was in a small town and we didn't have a homeopathic doctor. We had 2 doctors in town at that time. That's it. And my only option was prescription drugs, which I didn't love the idea of that, but it was literally my only option at the time. And again, it was, 1 or 2 migraines a month. But then a few years later, all of a sudden, I started getting migraines daily. And I didn't know why. But I went to the doctor to say, why are they suddenly worse? What's going on? And I felt like if I knew why they were suddenly worse, well, then I could do something about it, right? But if I didn't know the why, then I couldn't resolve it. But unfortunately, my doctor didn't have any suggestions, solutions, other than to give me a stronger medication and tell me to take a week off work because migraines can be cyclical, and maybe taking the week off work would just break the cycle. It didn't break the cycle. And so I had to take matters into my own hands, and I started researching naturopathic doctors. And it turned out that one naturopathic doctor was coming to town one day in a month. And so I got on her schedule and saw her the following month. And she suggested to me after we did the full intake, why don't we do a lab test for your hormones to see where they're at? And I went, wow, yes, this is what I want. This helps me understand the why. And that was really powerful because I did that. It was a saliva test and it took about a month to get the results. But when I got the results, it very clearly showed that my progesterone levels were too low relative to my estrogen levels. And she explained to me that that's a very common trigger of migraines. So she gave me a remedy to help boost my progesterone levels. And it was something called Vitex. And it was a herbal tincture that, I will be honest, was absolutely disgusting. But when you know something's going to help you, you're willing to do it, right? So for 2 weeks of 2 months of cycles, I had to take a teaspoon of this really disgusting stuff. And the great thing is that even after the first 2 weeks, by the time my next cycle came through, my migraines were so diminished to the point where they didn't even really feel like migraines anymore. It was just a headache. They weren't stopping me in my tracks, making me need to lie down and wish someone would chop my head off. They literally, I could still get through my workday, right? And so I loved it. I was so happy to have found what was truly going on inside my body. And then as a result, be able to take action to do something about it, as opposed to just taking drugs every single time and never knowing why this was happening to me. So I will continue that story as I go through this workshop, but I just also want to make sure that you do all have pen and paper handy, because as I dive in, I'm going to give you a lot of information. You're probably going to want to be taking notes, and you might also have questions. And I want to invite you to write those questions down so you don't forget them, because at the end of the workshop, I'm going to give you an invitation to book a one-to-one session with me to get your questions answered. When it comes to health, it's very personal. And so I'm offering one-to-one sessions to answer your questions rather than having people feel like they need to be privately airing their dirty laundry here. And also, I'm going to be inviting you to complete a quiz, which is going to show you some of the ways your body is talking to you that until now you may have been ignoring, because we just get in the habit of ignoring things, especially in our go, go, go busy life, right? And it makes you stop and think. And it's going to show you where your body is struggling. And these symptoms are often triggered by toxins, by our stress levels, by poor sleep, by nutrient deficiencies, and by hormonal imbalances. So it's really eye-opening for people to complete this assessment and discover just where their body is struggling. And then it gives you the choice to do something about it, right? So I want to share with you today the lifestyle factors that cause your hormones to become imbalanced, as when you understand this, it helps you make better decisions in supporting your body. And my workshops are designed to help you take control of your health, helping you get to that place of knowing that you are working together with your body, supporting it and giving it what it needs to function at optimal levels so that you can live your best life. And it's important to know that you have the power to do that, the power to listen to your body when it talks to you. So by the end of the webinar, you're going to know the top 10 causes of hormonal imbalances, the connection between stress, your sex hormones, thyroid health, blood, and blood sugar sensitivity, as well as how to assess your own hormonal imbalances. So we don't know what we don't know until we need to know. That's the title of a book I'm going to write one day. But for now, I want to ask you, what do you do with that information once you know it, right? So today you're going to know more. And once you do my assessment, you're going to know even more. And then after that is when you get to book your call with me to get your questions answered so that you truly know what to do with all of this information. And that's all part of this workshop. So I'm going to start out with a poll, again, to just kind of see where everyone's at in terms of symptoms that you might be encountering. So I'm going to open the poll here. And if I can just ask all of you to complete the poll. I know, Heidi, you're driving and you're just listening, so I'm not going to ask you to complete it, but if I can ask everyone else to complete the poll so we can just kind of see the different symptoms that people are having right now. Awesome. So I'm going to end that. It looks like everyone's completed it. Thank you very much, and share the results here. Hopefully everyone can see that. So we've got hot flashes and night sweats, irregular periods, breast tenderness, headaches, difficulty concentrating, memory lapses, emotional changes, mood swings, joint muscle aches and pains, and difficulty sleeping. So these are all extremely common symptoms. As you will see just from our small little group that we have here, we can see how all of you are being impacted by what's happening inside your body. So my next question for you is to just type in the chat, or we are a small group. If you want to unmute, you can just unmute and share. How do these symptoms leave you feeling overall? You can either type that in the chat or share. And my other question for you as you type in that one is just, when you are feeling that way, how well are you functioning at work, at home, and in your social life? Are you showing up and living your best life, or are you not fully feeling yourself? Are you having to hide, like my client who for 2 days of every month was, not wanting to talk to any of her colleagues? So yeah, crazy making, feel good and energetic one day and then tired and irritable the next. Yep. And disorganized, forgetful half the days. Very, very common. Thank you for sharing, Jackie. So I know what that's like because I've been there. And those migraines were, doing so much better for a while, but our hormones are changing throughout our lives. And 7 years after I did that first lab test, my migraines came back again. And I was listening to my symptoms and I knew what to do because I'd already figured it out before. So I went back to the naturopath and I told her, my progesterone's low again. I'm getting the same migraines. Can you give me some more of that disgusting stuff? And she wanted to run a lab test again just to make sure. And I said, you know what? The migraines are exactly the same as they were. Can we just start with the tincture? And if it doesn't work, I'll come back and do the lab testing. Because honestly, this tincture was so disgusting that if I didn't really think I needed it, I wouldn't be asking for it. And the good news for all of you is that was years ago. And now we can get the same kind of product, but in a capsule form, so you don't have to have that awful, horrible flavor. So that's what I did. And I took it again and it worked. And here's the thing, we tend to forget how amazing we can feel when we spend time feeling fatigued, or slowly over time, we just kind of start to feel worse and we don't remember how amazing we felt before, right? We don't see our kids grow and we don't notice that day by day decline. And I love to ask my clients, just how good are you willing to allow yourself to feel? As so many of us are writing off feeling worse as normal and accepting it. And we don't have to do that. And when we listen to our body, we can recognize the signs, look for the root cause, address the symptoms, and get rid of them and stop the suffering, just like I did. And it's easier than you might think to do that, to rebalance your hormones, when you have the support and you have the answers and you know what's actually going on inside your body. We can't see inside our body, so we don't know without getting that support, running those labs. So when menopause hit for me, my migraines came back again, but this time they were different. So I went back to the naturopath. I didn't waste any time. I just went straight there and said, they're different. I need to do lab tests. And so we did. And this time I learned that my testosterone was low, my estrogen was low, and my progesterone was low. So that's why the migraines were different. And this too is really common when we hit menopause. So I was completely out of balance. In fact, the naturopath said to me, I can't even really believe that you're standing. But somehow I was making it through at that point, right? And I was so appreciative of having that information because, again, I knew exactly what I needed to do and what herbal supplements that I could be taking in order to boost my all three hormones. So let's dive into the 10 causes of hormone imbalance. The first one is environmental toxins and xenoestrogens. The second one is heavy metals. The third one is imbalanced gut and digestive issues. The fourth, an overwhelmed liver and detox pathways. 5 is estrogenic inflammatory foods. 6 is the effects of cortisol on our body. 7, the thyroid estrogen relationship. 8, body fat's effect on estrogen. 9 is the birth control rebound effect. And 10, the effects of menopause on our hormones. So I don't have time to go through all of these today, but certainly during our call together, if you have any questions about any that I don't discuss, I can answer them for you, but I'll probably get through at least half of them. So the first one is effects of toxins on our hormones. And these aren't in any particular order of one being more of a problem than the other. It's just the top 10 causes, and then the effects of toxins on your hormones is an important one to be aware of. So xenoestrogens are estrogens that are foreign to the body, and they're made of natural chemical compounds or synthetic compounds, and they get into our body from the outside. And they're getting into our body. Oh, I'm just welcoming someone else in here. They're getting into our body, and they're close enough in molecular structure that they can bind to our estrogen receptors and then cause massive hormonal balance in our body. And I'm going to share my screen with you because I want you to see this slide here, because this is where many, many women can end up. Hopefully you can all see that. Can you see that slide? Toxic cosmetic chemical ingredients. Can you see that?
Yes. Can you zoom it in a little bit, Melissa?
I can't. I don't know if I know how to do that. How do I do that? Do you know how I do that?
Well, on my laptop, I can just like make this, well, that one's big enough.
Now I can't go back.
Now you switch the slide. Oopsie.
Hang on, I might have to stop share to go back. That was weird because it wasn't letting me go back.
It'll be fine. I can always screenshot it and then make
Well,
it bigger.
normally on my computer, all you do is roll your mouse and it gets bigger or smaller.
Oh, let me try that. Hang on a second.
That's an Apple though, so I don't know.
I'm on a Mac too, but
Okay, yeah, mine's a Mac.
oh, here, I can do it this way. I just have to do it before.
There you go.
There you go. Oh, I don't know if that made any bigger when it's in full screen mode. If anybody wants it, I can send it to you afterwards. So just let me know. But what I want to let you know is that these xenoestrogens are showing up in our cosmetics, our bath products, our plastics, our pesticides, our chemicals, our tap water, our food preservatives, our lawn care, and conventionally raised meat and dairy. And the average woman is putting over 200 toxins onto her body before heading out the door for work in the morning, just through her personal care products. And when we're putting them onto our skin, they actually get into our bloodstream in 26 seconds. And so I don't tell you this to terrify you. I tell you this for information because it allows you to then be making better choices around the personal care products and bath products that you're using in your home. And there's a lot of great companies now that are out there that are making toxin-free products. And so if that's something that you want to know more about, write that down as a question and we can certainly discuss that. And I can share with you the companies that I know of and that I use for myself. The other one I want to talk about is the conventionally raised meat and dairy, because this is a huge problem, that the farmers are getting paid by the weight of the livestock that they're selling. And so they obviously want to make more money. And so what they do is they feed the livestock hormones in order to fatten them up and have them grow more quickly. And then what happens is that we eat that meat and those hormones can flow into our body from what the livestock was fed. And that can cause hormonal imbalances for us. The next one is heavy metals. And these not only affect our female sex hormones, but also our thyroid. And 1 in 8 women will have thyroid issues in her life. And I'm actually just going to stop share here for a sec because I come back to this slide shortly. And these heavy metals can bind to the thyroid, which increases free radical damage, and they displace minerals the body needs for a healthy thyroid. And those key minerals are iodine, iron, selenium, and zinc. And when we don't have those key minerals, we can be setting ourselves up for issues with not only hormonal imbalance, but also autoimmune-based issues in relation to our thyroid. So examples of heavy metals that block the minerals that the thyroid needs are fluoride, chlorine, bromine, cadmium, mercury, aluminum, and arsenic. Now, fluoride, chlorine, and bromine all come above iodine on the periodic table, which is why they're blocking iodine, because again, the body is getting them in and they're in the same series and thinks it has what it needs, except that that's not what the thyroid needs. And this is why 1 in 8 women are struggling with thyroid issues. We're getting fluoride through our tap water. We get fluoride when we go to the dentist, right? This is information that's based on old science, and it takes us so long to adapt to the new science and make changes. And the new science is showing that fluoride's affecting our thyroid and that it's also a neurotoxin. And so I choose when I go to the dentist to tell them that I don't want fluoride. Thank you very much. Because we have that choice, right? And I live in a place where we don't have fluoride in our water, thankfully. Chlorine is often in our tap water. Cadmium, mercury, aluminum, and arsenic are all heavy metals that I actually can lab test for. And I see cadmium a lot in people who have grown up around cigarette smoke or are past smokers themselves. And we need to help the body get that cadmium out. Mercury, I've seen recently quite a bit in people with amalgam fillings, and they've been in there for a long time. And over time, they can get cracked. And then mercury can leak into the body. And understanding that from a lab test and getting that early warning is awesome, because those people have then chosen to have those fillings replaced with the porcelain ones now that are available. And if you're doing that, you need to find a holistic dentist. And honestly, the room will be set up looking like a full-on surgery room with tubes coming out of you, et cetera, because they're setting you up for success so that when they remove the mercury, none of it's going back down inside your body. So another issue with our imbalanced hormones is the thyroid estrogen relationship. So what happens is high estrogen will affect our thyroid and cause it to slow. And then the slow thyroid affects your estrogen, because now the liver can't process the estrogen as well. And then this leads to further excess estrogen in the body. And you end up in a vicious cycle that just keeps repeating itself. So all of that is leading to an overwhelmed liver, which that slide was what I had up before, and overwhelmed detox pathways on top of everything else that is bogging down our liver, some of which you're probably aware of, perhaps not all of them, but these are examples of how daily life is overloading our liver. And we need our liver to be functioning well so that it can be detoxing the excess estrogens in our body. And those of you who know me well know that I'm a huge proponent of detoxing and detoxing properly. And I do offer both group and individual programs that will clear out your detox pathways and give your body a complete reset. And so we want to get your liver back to doing what it does best, which is to keep your blood clean and rid that excess estrogen. Because when we do that, we have a much greater chance of keeping our estrogen and progesterone levels in balance and mitigating the symptoms that you may be experiencing. So the quiz that you can do after this program does let you know if your body is toxic and if your liver is struggling to do exactly that. So the next one that I want to talk about is the effect of stress on your hormones. We live in a stressed out world. In fact, the world was the most stressed out it had ever been before COVID hit, and then COVID hit. So we have a lot of stress that we carry in our bodies that stacks over time. And our brain doesn't know the difference between the stress that we encounter in our modern life and the stress that we encountered back in our hunter-gatherer days. Our brain is charged with keeping us safe at all times. And when it senses danger, it will respond. And it will put us into our fight or flight state so that we can fight or flee to get to safety. So if we were out hunting for food and we came across a lion, our body would respond by increasing cortisol production, increasing adrenaline, so that we could either fight that lion or run so fast we could get away from that lion and get back to safety. Now, in order for the body to be able to give us that burst of energy, it has to shut down other systems that use our energy. So our immune system uses a lot of energy. So in that moment of high stress, we shut down the immune system. We also shut down digestion, because we're not going to stop and eat a sandwich in that moment, right? We don't need to digest anything. And digestion uses 30% of your energy every time you put food into your mouth. And it shuts down procreation. That too uses energy. And we're not stopping to make a baby when we're running away from a lion, right? So what happens there is that in order to produce more cortisol, it also stops making progesterone. It's called the progesterone steal. because in that moment, it doesn't need progesterone, it needs cortisol. So that's how the body is designed to function. And then when we get to safety, we can calm, we can get back into our parasympathetic rest and digest system, and everything goes back to normal. Except that in our modern life, we're not getting back to normal. We're not getting into that calm, and we're just constantly in fight or flight, and it's called chronic stress. And in chronic stress, the body is still producing estrogen. We're still getting xenoestrogens into our body, but we're no longer producing progesterone. And so this is how we get into a state of what we call estrogen dominance, where our estrogen and our progesterone levels are imbalanced. And we don't want to be in that state of estrogen dominance, because that starts to slow the thyroid, as I've already mentioned. It also starts to negatively impact our blood sugar levels. It's also a known trigger for breast cancer. So understanding where your hormones are at is really important, because when you know that, you can again bring them back into balance. And I'm certain that it was stress in my life that was triggering me to be low in progesterone, right? It's completely normal for us, unfortunately, to be in that state of chronic stress. An example of that is you get up in the morning and you're trying to get breakfast for the family and get kids out the door to school. You're trying to get yourself out the door to work. Maybe you have little bit of a spat with your husband over something, and you get in the car and you're already running late, and you notice, oh, the gas is on empty. Now I have to go to the gas station. You go to the gas station, and then after that, there's an accident that slows everything down on the highway, and now you're going to be late. You have a big presentation today, and then your boss calls asking you where you are because he wants to make changes to the presentation, right? And all of that's happening in a half-hour window. How many of you relate to that? You can just put your hands up. We've all been there. Maybe not the exact same story, but you can feel the stress rising in your body, right? And so that's where it is really important to have tools to also be able to bring our stress levels down. And that was my last workshop on stress, which I will do again. And certainly we can talk about that, but I don't have time to go into the whole stress thing today, because that is literally a whole other workshop. I also want to mention that men are impacted by this as well, right? This isn't just a woman thing, that under stress in men, their testosterone production is reduced, and then they end up out of balance between testosterone and estrogen as well. So I'd love you to just put in the chat, where in your body do you feel stress? We all feel it, but we might feel it in different places. Where do you most commonly feel it? Head, chest, gut, neck, and shoulders. Yep. Chest and solar plexus. Absolutely. And I also just saw your comment there, Jari, as well, about cookware contributing. And yes, aluminum. Remember I said aluminum is a heavy metal that blocks, because a lot of cookware is aluminum. So you're absolutely right. And yeah, so all of you are feeling stress in different places in your body. And for each of you, it's not even the same all the time. But one thing none of you wrote is that you don't feel the stress impacting your hormones, right? We would never feel that, right? But it is, but we don't think about it because it's not as obvious to us. So some questions you can ask yourself, though, are, do your symptoms get worse under chronic stress? So I'm talking about either PMS or menopause. Do they get worse under chronic stress? And then the other question is, do your symptoms get worse in the last 5 to 7 days of your menstrual cycle? So think about that as well. So we've talked about stresses stacking. And so I just talked about the stresses of one morning, right? But stresses over time also stack within our body. So you could have a stressful few months, right? And if we're not actively doing something to bring the stress level down in our body, we stay in that state. And then that continues to have our body producing estrogen, but not progesterone. So this is a huge problem in our world today. And if we go back 100 years, I know, people will say, oh, my grandmother didn't have any menopausal symptoms, or my great grandmother, etc. Well, they didn't have the same stresses that we were under as we have in the world today. They didn't have the same level of toxicity, and their lives might have felt stressful to them, but maybe weren't the same go, 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 do stress of the life we live in today. And so I think the symptoms that we experience today are because it's just all exaggerated in today's world. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to share with you is that under stress, the body produces more aldosterone, which is another hormone, which raises our blood pressure, and it will make you feel swollen and puffy. And a lot of people will comment that they're feeling swollen and puffy on that assessment form. And so this is happening because the body is now retaining water weight due to higher sodium levels retained in the body. And so again, to rebalance this, we have to have the body stop asking for so much cortisol. And how do we do that? We get ourselves out of that stress state. So another of the top 10 was body fat's effect on estrogen. Higher estrogen levels in the body can add weight around our hips due to it lowering the thyroid and slowing our metabolism. And then this then increases estrogen levels again, and that can trigger weight gain in the glutes, the butt, the hips, and under the arms. That saggy skin here that nobody wants. Anyone relate to this? Mm-hmm. Right? So again, we get into this cycle because body fat can also increase estrogen levels. And then the more body fat you accumulate, the more endogenous, which is the estrogen made inside the body, you produce. So it's another vicious cycle. So excess estrogen and toxins get stored in body fat because the body's very smart. And when the liver can't properly detox the toxins and can't keep them, it doesn't want them to get into the bloodstream. So it will actually store them in body fat to stop it getting into the bloodstream when it's so overwhelmed that it can't get them out of the body. So what that means is that your adipose tissue, as we call it, is highly toxic. And when we lose weight, we're actually dumping more estrogen and toxins into the bloodstream, which then again increases our estrogen dominance. And so it's very important to ramp up your natural liver detox nutrients to help remove the estrogen and toxins more quickly and safely from the body when you are losing weight. And so this is something that I work with clients on through my liver detoxification process. We're ensuring that we are supporting the liver in being able to get these things out of the body quickly. And again, this pattern impacts men. So as testosterone converts to estrogen in their adipose tissue or fat tissue, it further lowers testosterone in the body. And so this is why overweight men will often appear to develop breasts. It's because they're estrogen dominant. So next, I want to talk about menopause, transition, and symptoms. So there are 3 stages of menopause that we go through. Perimenopause, which happens 8 to 10 years before menopause. It usually starts in the mid-40s, but it can start in the late 30s. And during this phase, the ovaries gradually produce less estrogen. And then in the last 1 to 2 years of that time frame, the drop in estrogen accelerates. And this is when women really start noticing symptoms. And that is when I went back to my naturopath to ask for those lab tests because I really noticed things were different. And then menopause is diagnosed once you have gone 12 consecutive months without a menstrual cycle. And the ovaries have now stopped producing eggs. And the typical age for this is age 45 to 55. And in this stage, progesterone falls more rapidly than estrogen. And you can then again be in a state of estrogen dominance. And so that's something that we want to make sure we're not in that state and know where our hormones are at. And then post-menopause is where you are at for the rest of your life after you've gone through that 12 months without a cycle. But even in this state, you can still experience menopausal symptoms for another decade or longer. Because of the impact of stress and toxins on our body. I see your head, Jory. I see you shaking your head. I know, right? It seems so unfair. 8 to 10 years of perimenopause and then 10 more years after, right? And so that's why I want to share this information with women, because these should be the best 20 years of our lives, right? We know who we are. We know what we want. We want to serve people. We're passionate about whatever we're doing. And yet we're stopped because we feel like crap. And so understanding all of this so you can instead rebalance your hormones is way, way better. And we also, in that as we get older, we're at risk of osteoporosis and heart disease as well because of these hormonal imbalances. So how do you start healing your hormones? Step one is understanding how you got here, which is what we've just gone through, many of the reasons. And hopefully there was some ahas there for all of you as to things that you can start to change just from the information that I've already shared or be more aware of, etc. Shari, your 4-letter word, I know. Step two is to understand what needs to be done to rebalance the body, right? And this is where we look at the deficiencies and toxicities, and we use lab tests to assess the deficiencies and those imbalances. And then step three is, what options do I have for healing, right? And understanding that and who you can work with to support you. And I truly recommend natural herbs and food, which are highly effective and support the body in coming back into balance. And this is often called bioidentical hormone therapy. I do not recommend synthetic hormone therapy or anything synthetic because it's foreign to the body and the body doesn't know what to do with it. And unfortunately, what most doctors are prescribing is synthetic HRT, hormone replacement therapy. And what happens is that the body actually stops making its own hormones because it's like, oh, you're giving it to me. I don't need this. And we stop making hormones, and then you need to use that therapy for life. Versus when we use herbs and food and natural supplements, we can actually just support the body in being better able to produce the hormones that it needs, and then we can wean you off them. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but we do have to address lifestyle factors of stress, of diet, right? Of exercise, because all of these things work together. So let's talk about some estrogen inflammatory foods for you. And I'm going to share my screen again here, if I can get to it. Here we go. There we go. So the list on the left are foods that are very high in estrogen. The ones with the bigger asterisks, the pumpkin seeds, the sesame, the garlic, and the mung beans, they also have progesterone in them, so they're not as much of a concern. But flax, very high in estrogen. If you're estrogen dominant, it's something that you want to be avoiding. Soy and tofu as well. They have asterisks next to them as well for a couple of reasons. First of all, soy and tofu, a very, very large % of soy and tofu in North America is GMO. So we don't want that. We want to be buying sprouted, organic, non-GMO for starters. The other reason the asterisk is there is they actually have a type of estrogen that is protective for women who are postmenopausal, which is awesome. However, if you're estrogen dominant, you need to still be making sure you are countering, if you're eating soy or tofu, with foods that are high in progesterone, because they will still, even though it's a protective estrogen, it can still add to the estrogen dominant state if you're in that state. So just be aware of that and be careful. The foods in the middle column are not as high in estrogen, but if your garbage can, as I often call it, is full or close to overflowing, it can just be enough to top you over into that state of estrogen dominance that causes symptoms for you. And you might be thinking, these are all healthy foods. What's the problem? They are all healthy foods. And I truly believe that every single one of us on this planet needs to find the right way to be eating for us, and the right way that we eat changes as we go through our life, right? And so it's just being aware of these healthy foods that you might have been able to eat before and you might be able to eat again. But if you're in an estrogen dominant state, you don't want to be eating them now. And you might also be wondering, how much does it really affect you? Well, soy and I don't have a great relationship. And in fact, I want to say about 15 years ago, I was visiting my sister in Tokyo. We were actually raised in Tokyo. She was living there. I was there on business and then hanging out with her for a few days after. And around the corner from her place was a Starbucks. And at the time, my thing was a chai tea latte that I enjoyed at Starbucks once a day. It was my vice. And we went there and I ordered my chai tea latte. And she's like, you shouldn't eat dairy. Dairy's so bad for you. It's full of hormones. You need to drink soy. And so I decided, okay, if I should be drinking soy, I don't really like it, but she's telling me it's good for me. I didn't know then what I know now. I was in the corporate world. I hadn't done any health stuff then. And I decided, okay, I'll start drinking soy with my chai tea latte. I've learned to like greens drinks. I can learn to like soy in my chai tea latte if it's better than getting the hormones from the dairy, right? So I did. And it's what? I got the small one. So it's maybe 8 ounces, not even, because they put the chai tea latte in the bottom. So maybe 6 ounces of soy daily. I got back from Japan, unpacked, did the laundry, repacked, went to Calgary for another business trip. And in Calgary, oh my God, I got the worst migraines every day. And I didn't know why. It wasn't my cycle. I'm thinking, is it just my travel? Is it the altitude in Calgary? I was suffering because I had to show up and do these appointments with my clients and my head was in so much pain. I get home from Calgary and I'm talking to a girlfriend and I'm telling her about my awful migraines and the soy. And she's like, did you know soy is really high in estrogen? And I said, what? No, I didn't know that. But that was the big aha. If it's really high in estrogen, it's pushed my estrogen levels up. So my body thinks I'm low in progesterone. Why did I always get migraines? Because I was low in progesterone, right? And then I'm like, really? I mean, 6 ounces a day, can that really do that to me? So I write to my naturopath and she answered with exactly what was in the back of my mind. Stop drinking it, see what happens. Duh. So I did. Guess what happened? No more migraines. So that's how sensitive I am to soy. And we all have different sensitivities to different foods, etc. And so that's why it's important to know this, because you too may be sensitive. Now, on the flip side of this are the foods that are high in progesterone. So it's very rare in today's world, for all of these reasons that I've given you, that women are high in progesterone and would need to be eating more of the estrogen foods to balance. But many women are high in estrogen, and we need to eat more of these foods in order to balance our hormones. Does that make sense? So this list is very helpful for many, many people. You can take a screenshot of it if you would like. And again, all healthy foods, so easy to be adding in to your diet. Now, in addition to using foods and herbs, we also need to be addressing the toxicity level on your body and the stress level on your body, which in my guided programs, I do both. So the next slide that I want to show you is how you can discover your hormone imbalances. And this is the very same lab test that I've used several times over now and now offer to my clients. So what it gives you is all 4 thyroid markers. Usually at your doctor, you just get TSH, but I want to see the free T3, the free T4, and the TPO antibodies. That gives me an indication of your risk of thyroid autoimmune disease. It also, with the free T3, free T4, gives me the early warning of the slowing thyroid. Remember, high estrogen slows the thyroid, right? So we get that early warning. And anytime we have early warning means we can bring ourselves back into balance more quickly. If we're way out here, it takes a lot longer than if we know, oh, slightly out of balance, here we go. But our mainstream medicine doesn't let us look at those early warning signs, unfortunately. We get all 4 sex hormones, so and that balance between our progesterone, estrogen. We get cortisol 4 times through the day. Cortisol should be highest in the morning and then slowly come down through the day and be at its lowest when we're trying to go to sleep at night. And that's not what's happening in many people when we're in that state of chronic stress. And so when we see where cortisol's out of balance, we know what time of day that your body needs to be calmed, which will allow you to have better sleep, bring your cortisol back into balance so that your estrogen and progesterone can come back into balance if the body's not demanding all that cortisol. It also shows us blood sugar numbers, so both 90-day and fasted. Again, super helpful because we know estrogen dominance starts to put us on the path of type 2 diabetes. And again, this gives us the early warning sign of where your body's at there. And then it also shows vitamin D3, which is super helpful for so many reasons, including immune health, brain health, bone health, teeth health, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a very powerful lab test. And then I just want to let you know that I'm one of 7 integrative health practitioners in Western Canada and one of 27 in the whole country. And I was in fact the 3rd integrative health practitioner trained in Western Canada. So there are not many of us that offer this work, but it doesn't actually matter where I am or where you are because my work is entirely virtual. And those lab tests get mailed to your home for you to do in the comfort of your own home and then mail them back to the lab. And I can see Jackie nodding her head. And I know you put in the chat earlier that you just mailed yours off. And then once I get the results, I review them with you and provide you next steps. I don't just send you on your way to figure it out on your own, which that has happened to me even working with naturopathic doctors, not with my hormones, but for my kids and food tolerance issues, et cetera. They're just like, here's your lab results, now go do it, right? But we all need more help and support when it comes to implementing new habits. And so I guide you through all the steps and have at least 3 follow-up calls with you to ensure that you're on track with your protocol, that it's helping, effective, and then weaning you off it. Because it's not something when it comes to your hormones that you need to be on forever. We just want to be rebalancing them. So all of those questions that you might have been writing down today, now is your time to click on the link, and I'm going to drop it in the chat here for all of you so that you can go ahead and book your call with me. And I need to grab it again here because I was sending somebody the link to register. So let me put this in the chat. And you can click on the link and book a call with me so that we can chat about where your hormones are at, how I might be able to serve you, questions that you have from today, as well as review your assessment once you have done that and determine, where your body is showing signs of imbalances. My email address is also melissa@yourguidedhealthjourney.com. It would be really helpful if you emailed me your questions just so that I can be better prepared ahead of our call together in order to ensure that I have the answers for you, because the truth of the matter is I don't know everything. And sometimes I need to do some research in order to get you the answers that you want. And so just sending the emails in advance will allow me to do that and serve you better. So today's session is just the starting point in understanding how your hormones get out of balance, and then the next steps you can take to rebalance them to get back to living your life fully. As I said earlier, menopause should be the best decade or 2 decades of your life. Don't waste it suffering. get the help that you need, like I did. And let me ask you this, without your health, what else do you have? Choose to be proactive in your health. Live life fully. Invest in the quality of life that you want, because you know how to do this. And as I said, when we know better, we do better. So super easy to do. And I look forward to talking to all of you soon. And I would love to just ask you if there's anything that I said today that has inspired you, motivated you. Maybe it's just an aha. There's only a few of us here. I'd love you to unmute and share what that might be.